Hey everybody, it's Shatterstar and Crystal here for another error review. This time it's Doppelganger.
Well, a lot happened this time.
Yeah, I feel like a lot was in this episode, more than I expected. Like, I knew all the plot points, but I forgot that it was all in this episode.
So, Roy's here.
Roy is here. I forgot that he showed up in this episode of all things, so, although I should have known it if I looked at future titles. But anyway, yes, Roy is here, which means Thea gets to have a bit of a plot going on. That came out of completely nowhere, because, it's just out of nowhere. We're like, oh, we've got a new witness. We've kidnapped Roy.
Yeah.
So, whatever. We rescued Roy, and now he's with Thea.
Yeah.
But hey, that was fun, but it kind of tied all the plots together too, because Roy was being held by Diaz, who's working with Laurel, and Laurel's involved with the other part of the plot, and then there's this whole back and forth on whether we trust Laurel.
Yeah, because at first, even when she was talking to Diaz, I assumed that she was being like, oh yeah, I'll help you, just so she can get out of there safely. But then at the end, she gets a text from him and smiles, so it's like, I don't know.
I have no idea. Like, I completely forgot about that point. It's like, because even though I've seen this, I always forget things. So I'm like, oh, which way's Laurel going? How's this playing out for the next few episodes? She's like, whose side is she playing? Is she playing the long con? Well, she is, but with who is the real question.
Yeah.
She's playing the long con, that's for sure, but Diaz or Oliver?
She could be smiling because it's like, he still trusts me.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Or she's screwing over Oliver. I really don't know which. And I've seen this. I mean, part of her, there is genuineness too. Like, she is genuine in her wanting to get away from Dinah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but then it's a question of how genuine is she being. I do find it funny that everyone's swapping places. Like, okay, I'd like to point out the house swaps over the past few seasons. Laurel is now living with Quentin. Reminder, Thea's apartment is not Thea's apartment. It's Laurel's apartment. Thea went to move in with Laurel at the start of season 4 after she didn't want to be at her apartment because she was murdered there, which that was the apartment that Oliver then moved into, which then Thea moved into, and now no one's there. So I guess they sold Thea's old apartment. Thea's living in Laurel's apartment, and Laurel's living with Quentin. They're just swapping houses. So now if Quentin can just go buy somebody else's house, it'll be on a constant loop. I do like the fact that they brought up the fact that Quentin brought up Laurel's mother quickly, because I'm thinking to myself, boy, somebody better somehow explain doppelgangers to her quickly.
Yeah, because it's all over the news.
Exactly. So thank God we got ahead of that. Otherwise, that'd be a mess. But yeah. So, I mean, to be fair, it's the first time we've had a confrontation with Diaz after all the mess that happened with Kate and James. So, I mean, I don't hate Diaz, but I'm always going to prefer Caden to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this episode, surprisingly, it was all over the place, but it also had a lot of good, interesting points in it.
And then there's that ending.
And then there's the ending. I know. I did remember I didn't know if there was going to be a cliffhanger, but I knew what it ties into.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I am excited for. So, we're getting some Thea plot, which is good, because, Thea was kind of in a coma for the first half of the season, and she's just kind of doing nothing. So Thea's finally becoming relevant to the plot once again.
I mean, as we've seen before, the way a new person becomes Ra's al Ghul is either by defeating him or passing it down the family.
Well, no, remember, Malcolm was Ra's al Ghul. Then there was this fight with Nissa, and then she became Ra's al Ghul, and then she disbanded the League.
True.
Yeah, so, and we haven't seen hide or hair of the League ever since.
Maybe there are people that believe Nissa doesn't deserve to be Ra's al Ghul, and that Malcolm is the true Ra's al Ghul, which is what makes Thea the heir.
Which is just a bit of an odd point. I mean, it's not to say you're weird for thinking it, but it's an odd point when you think about the fact that Malcolm barely was Ra's al Ghul. He was Ra's al Ghul for a few months, and he usurped it in the most asinine way. Whereas Nissa is the actual heir to Ra's al Ghul, the one who'd been Ra's al Ghul for literally centuries.
Yeah.
So, but then again,
That
when
idiot stupidly didn't want to pass it on to her, so he tried to get Oliver to marry her so Oliver would be.
Yeah, so I don't know. But then again, when has League ever made sense?
No.
So,
I was just trying to come up with an idea for how Thea could be the heir, but...
I mean, that's a fair point to make. The cliffhanger definitely tries to raise questions, so obviously we'll have to see what happens next time.
Yeah, we'll see what their reasoning is.
I'm excited for that point, because, I don't know, as much as I dislike Season 3, I've kind of missed the League stuff, because I do like the League, I just hated aspects of Season 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this was good. I guess I'll give it 8.
I'll give it an 8 as well. This was better than I was expecting. At first, obviously I was excited for the whole Laurel stuff. Then I got a little distracted and like, oh, we're going to cram in the Roy plot. But then I kind of like the Roy plot more for what it builds up for. And I'm liking the kind of back and forth with Laurel. She's not full-on villain, but there's still a lot of debate going on. And then obviously you've still got Dinah. I feel like... And then, oh yeah, and then Renee's not in this episode because he's still injured, and Curtis was barely in this episode too.
Yeah.
Because Curtis only had one scene where he told Zoe what was going on, so, yeah. Long story short, don't be a child on this show. Your parent will either be a vigilante who's injured, a vigilante who's lying to you, or a supervillain. Long story short, stop being children on this show. Anyway, what is the next episode called?
The Thanatos Guild.
Well, I remember what that refers to.
I don't, but I've heard the name somewhere.
Interesting. I don't know where. Maybe you've just picked it up through osmosis or something, but who knows. But anyway, we'll see you next time for more Arrow and other things as well. See you next time, guys.